The gymnasium at Naval Station Norfolk was packed with families, their voices echoing off the high ceilings as they waited for the graduation ceremony to begin. Sarah Chen sat in the middle section, clutching a small bouquet of flowers, her eyes scanning the rows of young sailors in their dress whites. After 3 months of basic training, she was finally going to see her son Michael receive his completion certificate. She'd driven 12 hours from Ohio, taking time off from her job at the hardware store. Money was tight, it always had been, but she wouldn't have missed this for anything. Michael was her whole world, the reason she'd worked double shifts for years, the reason she'd sacrificed everything. The ceremony began with the national anthem. Sarah stood, her hand over her heart, blinking back tears of pride. As she raised her arm, her sleeve slipped down slightly, revealing the edge of a tattoo on her forearm, an intricate design of an anchor intertwined with a trident and eagle. 3 rows back, Vice Admiral James Kelly was attending the graduation of his nephew. He was scanning the crowd absently when his eyes locked on Sarah's exposed forearm. He froze. That tattoo, that exact design. His breath caught in his chest. It was impossible, absolutely impossible. The design wasn't standard Navy ink. It was something else entirely, a mark worn by fewer than 50 people in the world, all members of an elite group that didn't officially exist, a covert task force that had operated in the shadows during the Gulf War, running missions so classified that most records had been destroyed. The tattoo was their only proof of service, each one hand-drawn by the same artist, a former SEAL who'd served with them. Admiral Kelly had the same tattoo on his shoulder. His mind raced. The task force had been almost entirely male, with only 3 female operatives. One had died in a training accident. One had become a senator, and the third had disappeared after a mission went sideways in Kuwait. She'd been listed as discharged under mysterious circumstances, her record sealed. Her name had been Sarah Chen, but that was 30 years ago. The woman sitting in front of him looked nothing like the 23-year-old warrior he'd served alongside. That Sarah had been fierce, unstoppable, with eyes that could cut through steel. This woman looked worn down by life, her hair streaked with gray, her shoulders carrying a weight that had nothing to do with combat. Could it really be her? The ceremony continued, but Kelly couldn't focus. He watched Sarah carefully. The way she sat perfectly straight despite the uncomfortable bleachers. The way her eyes tracked every movement on the floor with tactical precision. The way her hand moved to her hip occasionally, where she would have carried a sidearm decades ago. When the graduates marched in, Sarah's face transformed. Pure joy radiated from her as Michael passed by. She waved, unashamed of her enthusiasm, and Kelly saw tears streaming down her face. After the ceremony, families flooded the floor to find their sailors. Kelly pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding. He had to know. He approached Sarah just as she was embracing Michael. "Excuse me," he said, his voice uncertain for the first time in years. Sarah turned, and when her eyes met his, something flickered their recognition. Fear, and something else he couldn't quite name. "Admiral," she said quietly, her military bearing suddenly apparent. She'd known exactly what rank he held without seeing his uniform up close. "Desert Fox," he said, using her old call sign. Michael looked between them, confused. "Mom, do you know him?" Sarah's composure cracked. "It's been a long time." Kelly's eyes were wet now. "We thought you were dead. After Kuwait, after the extraction went wrong. They told us you'd been discharged for medical reasons, but your records were sealed. No one could find you. Ghost, Hammer, myself, we looked for years. I asked them to seal everything," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I needed to disappear." "Why?" She glanced at Michael, who was watching with growing understanding. "Because I found out I was pregnant, and I knew that if anyone from our world knew, they'd either pull me back in or target my child. I couldn't risk it, so I became no one, just another single mother working retail in Ohio." The words hit Kelly like a physical blow. Sarah Chen, Desert Fox, one of the most lethal operatives he'd ever served with, had given up everything. She'd walked away from recognition, from benefits, from the Brotherhood. She'd worked minimum wage jobs and lived in obscurity to protect her son. "The Kuwait mission," Kelly said. "You saved 17 lives that night. You carried Hammer to Miles with a shattered ankle. You're the reason half our team made it home." Michael's eyes widened. "Mom, that was a different life," Sarah said firmly. "No," Kelly said, his voice taking on the authority of command. "That was your life, your service, your sacrifice. And you've been making sacrifices ever since." He looked at Michael. "Your mother is a hero, son. A real one. And she's been hiding it because she loves you more than glory." Sarah shook her head. "I'm just a mom, sir. That's all I wanted to be. You're more than that. You've always been more than that." Kelly pulled out his phone. "Do you know that Ghost is now a congresswoman? She's spent years trying to get recognition for our task force. She's been fighting to declassify our records, to get our team the medals we earned. But she couldn't find you. None of us could. I didn't want to be found. I understand why. But Sarah, your son just enlisted. He's going to serve his country, just like you did. Don't you think he deserves to know who his mother really is? Don't you think he deserves to be proud of both his service and yours?" Sarah looked at Michael, really looked at him, and saw not the little boy she'd protected for so long, but a man who'd chosen the same path she once had. Michael took her hand. "Mom, I enlisted because of you, not despite you working hard jobs, but because of it. You taught me about service, real service every single day. You served your country in combat, and then you served me by giving up everything else. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." Sarah collapsed against her son, sobbing. Years of carrying secrets, of pretending to be less than she was, of hiding her scars and her nightmares, it all came pouring out. Kelly gave them a moment, then spoke gently. "Sarah, there's a ceremony next month at the Pentagon. They're finally recognizing our task force. 3 silver stars, 6 bronze stars. You earned one of those silver stars. Will you come? Will you let your country thank you?" She looked up, her eyes red but clear. "I stopped being Desert Fox a long time ago." "No," Kelly said. "You just started being her for different reasons. You fought enemies then. You've been fighting poverty, discrimination, and obscurity ever since. Same warrior, different battlefield." 3 weeks later, Sarah Chen stood in the Pentagon, her son beside her in his dress uniform, as the Secretary of the Navy pinned a silver star to her chest. The citation was still partially classified, but the parts that were read aloud spoke of extraordinary heroism under fire, of selfless service, of saving lives at the cost of her own career. When it was over, Michael hugged her tight and whispered, "I always knew you were a hero, Mom. Now everyone else knows it too." Sarah smiled through her tears, finally understanding that she'd never stopped serving. She'd just found a different mission, the most important one of her life, and she'd completed it with the same excellence she'd brought to every operation. Some warriors wear uniforms, others wear apron strings and work boots, but they all serve, they all sacrifice, they all deserve to be seen.